Although this is a brand new model, it feels like I don't need to introduce smart, as in smart cars, to you, because we're all familiar with the two-seater smart cars. They've been around forever, although never officially sold in Ireland. But now smart are kind of different because it's a combination. And the pairing involves Mercedes and Geely, who make Volvo. They got together in 2019, just before COVID, and decided, yes, let's go into partnership. So the car is designed interior exterior by Mercedes, and the running train and all the electrification is from China. Because of the involvement with Merc, there's even a Brabus version, and if you've got 40 grand to spend, Smart will sell you a car that has almost 280 brake horsepower and will do, give or take, 400 kilometers on a single charge. And it's certainly different looking. You might like it, and some people will maybe love it. You have a daytime running light bar right across the front. Smart is here. Bit of a frunk below this bonnet, but like you wouldn't be putting much into it. And while you can get a version for a little under 40 grand, actually this one is 48 because it's a Smart #1 Premium. Now, the standard car comes fairly well spec'd. It's got the smaller battery, slower charging speed, 7.4, versus the second model up doing 22 AC, which is so handy. You get a 360-degree camera, doesn't matter what model you get. This version has two-tone colours going on, silver roof rails, Smart logo in the C-pillar, bit of different contrast going on here, and different alloys depending on which version you get. But it really is a well-spec car. Like all models get a glass roof, for example. Doesn't have a big frunk, so maybe it makes up for it in the back, where we have another light bar across the back. A Smart logo, which you don't use to press on this car, as I demonstrated in the recent #3 car. We do have a wiper, but it's electric. Now, the boot is 313 litres. Not huge, okay? You'd say small, actually. Not much bigger than a Mini. You can put your cables under here. There's like a partition in the shelf, and then you can fully store things under there. So kind of makes up for that. And if you do have the floor, boot floor level, you've no lip. So if you were to keep a very small dog in there, it'd be easier to get them in and out, but you wouldn't be fitting a dog box. So the dog would just be kind of on their own in the back. Now there's no doubt this colour probably helps with the car. It probably looks good in white and black. Plastic bumper on the back, of course, as well, and #1 in the left. Combination for Mercedes and Volvo. It must feel good inside, right? Well, let's take a little look. These door handles will pop out and demonstrate Smart, kind of engraved on the inside of the handles for you. Let's check out the inside. Well, yeah, I mean, feels pretty good. The doors are very, very heavy and solid. Even if you recline your seat, you've got a bit of extra space for knees. It's a mixture of fake leather and real leather, depending on trim which you go for. There is a very handy usable armrest and access to the boot from in here. Plenty of floor space for feet. USB A and C charging, your own air vents which have some ambient lighting around them. This version has a Beats sound system, so little subs in the tops of the doors, bigger speakers from Beats down the bottom. Even the rear door bins are generous, but the ones in the front are massive. And all versions get all this light that you can cover up with an actual proper blind if you don't want the sun beaming in at you all day. But it feels very spacious for what is not the biggest car in the world, and that's aided by how much you can see of the dashboard. The Smart #1 also has a party piece in that you can individually move this side and the other side of the rear bench way forward to give yourself more boot space. So actually the 313 suddenly becomes practical. So very little to complain about in the rear. It's got some nice premium touches inside the car. When you get in, it'll move your seat back to wherever you had it saved. Steering wheel feels very good. The buttons and the fittings are high quality. There's even little pads here on the side for your knees rubbing against them. These tweeters double up. They will flash at you at night time in particular. If you're going to cross lanes or thinks you are, they flash orange to warn you. There's massive, massive door bins You put one of these in and there's still space for probably 2 more of them. They haven't skimped on the surfaces, even on the rear passenger doors. They're also soft touch, and that's not always the case in brands these days. The seats, even they look different. Kind of remind me of a Dyson product in the headrest, just on the sides. The storage in here for your smartphone, and I like the way there's a bit of a lip. So if you are wirelessly charging it, it's not moving around. There's 2 USB charging ports here. Drinks holders going on, and then it chills under the armrest area, which is also very generous. And this screen is huge. It has a Fox, which is the avatar in this car. Some shortcut buttons down the bottom that are physical haptic buttons, but it's still a lot based on the screen. Now you can do things like swipe down even in CarPlay and get back to the actual car software. There's a shortcut button to bring you to home, shortcut buttons to bring you to loads of things like parking assist with that 3D overview camera that's very easy to access. You can have inbuilt Spotify, then you've got separate icons for Android Auto and CarPlay. It has its own nav. It's generally a fairly friendly thing to use. There's just an awful lot of functionality behind a screen. Another complaint, the glove box is quite small, but someone obviously suffers from heartburn, has left some Rennies inside. But all this white, it's very bright now, but it's nice materials. Really feels like a premium product. Bit of an infrared sensor here for driver monitoring. I can't say it's giving me too much trouble, to be honest with you. It does have a sport driving mode. If you want to whack it into that, you can. The radar cruise is easy enough to use. One thing I haven't managed to figure out is how it closes the gap between you and the car in front. That's a little bit fiddly. These screens can go very bright at night time, like you'll want to turn them down, to be honest with you. They're that bright. Bit of storage down here also. That's the beauty of not having a transmission tunnel. So it feels pretty good up front, if I'm honest. When you look at the performance figures of the car, it tells you a lot. I mean, pretty much 280 brake horsepower, loads of torque, rear wheel drive. The battery capacity is a good size. If you go for the Brabus version, that's dual motored. And it's got plenty of torque. It's quick in a straight line, no doubt about it, and decent levels of grip as well. It does kind of let you know its weight at times, and there's a bit of body roll, and the steering is sharpish, but there's no real level of feedback to it, so there's no massive connection to you as a driver. Certainly it's a car that's a bit more about the spec that it comes with. Faster charging speed, 130 kilowatt as standard, and 150 kilowatt if you go for some of the more expensive trim versions of it. But if you do go for the higher up expensive, it gets very expensive. So as I keep saying, I think Pro Plus is where most people would want to go with it. But yeah, look, especially whack it into sport mode and floor it, and yeah, it's a proper shove into your back seat. If you meet the wrong pothole, hit the wrong speed ramp, it's quite firm, and you'll get a significant thump in towards the cabin. Depending on alloy wheels, but they're all going to be reasonably big. It will be perfect for the roads that they get on the continent, but in Ireland, there will be times in the car where you just go, oh, felt that. Official energy consumption figures, 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. It's more like 18 that I'm seeing with this particular test car. If you are on motorways, you might see 19, but actually it's pretty good for aerodynamics when it comes to motorway driving. I've seen cars that are a lot worse, put it that way. The driver instrument's just over 9 inches, so it's really wide. Lovely colours in it, very sharp. You'll see the brake light in the car come on the display, whether you have regen on or just your normal braking, that will display there. So it's actually not a bad idea to show people, because sometimes people don't know when the regen is on, when I'm just lifting off, does the brake light come on? The answer is yes. There is one pedal driving mode in it. It's quite severe, and you've got to go into menus to turn it on. So I've I've actually kind of lived without it this week. I did use it for a couple of days, and then I was like, it's too much. So that particular thing wasn't for me. It's not particularly noisy. That's going to depend on what rubber your car comes with, but there's no real A-pillar noise. I mean, it does feel like a premium product, whether that's spec or just the whole experience of driving it. The biggest, I suppose, place that you could be negative about it is just the weight, some of the handling. Well, that's the case for a lot of electric cars, and until the batteries get lighter, I don't think that message is going to change, to be honest with you. Overall though, I have enjoyed the car. I've actually had it for a week and a half this week, the way travelling has worked out. And yeah, looks might be a little bit odd for some people, but you know what? It's not a bad little car. I do think it's a case of the more the merrier when it comes to smaller EVs with decent range, with a lovely, well-fitted interior, because we're so used to larger cars that maybe aren't as easy to maneuver around a city centre. So I kind of like that the idea of a smart car isn't fully lost on this bigger vehicle. I mean, it's not as small as the two-door ones, but still, it's not a bad size for getting around in the city in. All versions of it are generously spec'd as well. Probably the second version up, the Pro Plus, is the one where the value is. Yes, if you want everything at nearly 50 grand, this is a good option to have, but it's going to cost you quite a bit. So, you know, the Pro Plus, you got the 22 AC on board, loads of the tech, and it's pretty efficient as well. So, yeah, it's a bit of a random one, perhaps, compared to some of the mainstream brands, but you do know you've got the giants that are Mercedes and Geely kind of behind it. So, for that reason, if you're in the market for a funky little SUV EV, it's worth a look. Thanks for watching.